Here at the Giver Marketing Network, we don't leave you drifting out in space. We connect you to a coach who will help you build and grow your marketing business. Our process acts as a guide on how to connect with other businesses, maintain good relations, and establish a presence on the Giver Marketing Network. Each member within this collaborative group will have the opportunity to leverage your talent and influence, a true network effect. If you are looking to collaborate on more projects, welcome to the Giver Marketing Network, the most trusted and highest rated collective of specialists on the planet. Here we have a group of like-minded professionals who focus on making valuable introductions and helping each other grow by teaming up. Imagine Upwork meets a network and a coach. The talent collectively includes services like visibility and SEO, creating logos, designing websites, managing social media, outreach messaging, visual storytelling, and much more. Think of what you could do with laser-focused allies strengthening your business while offering your talents to the entire network. Click near this video for more information.
Hello, and welcome to another Tuesday marketing broadcast. We are excited today. I've got one of my favorite people in the house. Woo! Wanted to shout out and say hi to all of our collaboration partners out there, from the Prepared Group to Kingdom Warriors to Selling with Dignity. We have so many friends out there. If you want to collaborate with us, reach out because we love to work with other people. And today's guest is Rob Turley, and you are in for a treat. Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Fantastic. Yourself, Christine?
I am so excited. You have no idea.
Oh, I'm glad you're excited.
I am. You always bring it. I'm just saying, there's technology topics out there. There's topics that are in depth. You don't just float on the surface. You deep dive and you actually leave us with something that's really valuable. And today I know is going to be one of the days.
Yeah, well, I really simplified it for everybody today. So I fail to do that sometimes, where I think it's simple, then it's not, because what I do is probably one of the most complicated jobs. But I think I nailed it.
Well, and if nothing else, you can go back and watch the replay again. Anything that you missed the first time around, take notes. So get your paper, get your pen out, whatever it is you need to do to take some notes and follow along, because Rob is in the house. Now, Rob.
Well, they can also follow up with me too if they have questions. So
that absolutely, we're all going to make sure you stick around, because we're going to give you the link so you can make an appointment with him, because you're going to want to talk to him after this. Promise.
And the appointment's free, by the way. It's not.
Yeah. Total bonus. I love it. So, Rob, you have RevOps Hitman. Okay. So what is that all about? How did you become a RevOps Hitman?
Well, so it wasn't my choice. It was actually the chief editor of a magazine. I submitted an article around RevOps in its early days, because I was one of the first few to have existed. And they wanted me to write an article, so I did. And she said, the chief editor said, the title's too technical and boring. No one's going to read it. I went, okay, well, I'll change it. And then she said, well, it's too late. I already changed it and it's published. And I went, well, what is it? She said, The Confessions of a RevOps Hitman. Let me tell you what, readership was extremely high and it worked, but then the name stuck. So I built a brand around it. I actually don't like it, but your branding is not for you. It's for everybody else.
Okay, I'll buy that. So the RevOps Hitman was born at that point.
Yeah, I couldn't shake it off. It stuck.
I love that. Well, I mean, that's an unusual story, right? Most people love their brand. You're like, nope, I kind of got stuck with it. That's okay.
Well, people really like it. It brings them joy. They think it's interesting. They always think it's really cool. So, it's up to them. I don't like it per se, but I don't have to like it.
Well, so you mentioned RevOps. Now, for those that are unfamiliar with the term, what is RevOps?
RevOps is just a contraction of a phrase, revenue operations. Revenue operations, by definition, and there's a lot of false definitions out there. Actually, the closest enterprise to have gotten it right, which is shocking, is HubSpot, because they don't really practice RevOps in their company. But at the same time, my definition is that it is the conjoining and de-siloing of a company. So you know how companies are built into divisions, and by definition, they're quite literally divided. where the most common circumstance you see is that the sales team is pointing fingers at the marketing team saying, oh, they're bringing in crap leads and we can't work with these. And then the marketing team is pointing fingers at the sales team saying, oh, well, they can't close anything. And it's this endless battle to the death. So it's about de-siloing and having it becoming a data-enabled, data-actionable, conjoined process across all divisions to de-silo the whole company so that you could drive revenue. So I work with cross-divisionally with anything that has to do with revenue generation or revenue generation adjacent. So that would include sales, marketing, customer success, customer support, product and engineering, service delivery, if applicable, procurement, so on and so forth. But I need to know how to speak all of those languages, and I'm often a bridge between those different divisions in the company. So it's endless.
So you have to get them to get along with each other. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah. The worst is when you have to try to get the engineers to actually talk to the CS team because they actually have the answers of what they need to innovate next, but they're married to their code, and they are married to their the whole workflow that they have set up, the timeline that they have set up. We're going to be releasing this, and this. But if the customer doesn't want it, they don't want it. And if you keep releasing pieces of an application that are going to be unutilized, it becomes harder and harder to sell. So top of the funnel issues occur, even if they don't change the pricing, is that people don't want to pay for half of a product they don't need. So they'll go to a competitor simply because they don't want to buy a bunch of crap they don't want. But before those releases, they were buying it all day. So it's a whole psychological thing, and it's about misfortune and miscalculation around innovation, right? So it gets very interesting. So root causal analysis, which is an engineering term, I converted that to operations. So it's understanding where the root problem is. Because tell me where it hurts. Those are the symptoms. Oh, top of the funnel's an issue. Retention's an issue. But you're going to find about 90% of the time, that's not the cause.
And this is why you want a RevOps Hitman.
Yeah, well, I got the nickname. To be honest with you, I got the nickname because I'm known to be ruthless.
And I think there's times in your business where you really do need somebody on the outside coming in with a fresh eye to come in and be that ruthless eye for you. So I love it, Rob. Well, so is this what you've always done, or what's your background? How did you get to here?
Well, my background makes no sense at all. It goes in every single direction. But I'm a nonlinear thinker, so dots don't have to connect for them to connect. I can see where they do. But the birth of RevOps essentially was when I had an AI company before this for about half a decade. And this was, you're talking 8 years ago, creating one of the first and most powerful predictive analytics technologies to this day, where no one has replicated it yet. But companies weren't ready for it yet. Their data was terrible. It was an absolute mess. Normalization was just becoming a thing. So having to come in, and they also were not ready for it operationally, where we actually had high turnover of clients because it worked too well. Is that predictive analytics for sales, being able to know who's going to buy from you and who you can build relationships with before you ever meet them, and being able to know who to reach out to is an incredible thing. But then once they bring in enough clients, their tech stack, their tooling, their operations cannot handle the load. So it was cancellations due to effectiveness, which is crazy because what is that? So it was out of pure necessity to be able to reoperationalize. So a consulting arm came out of it to restructure, reoperationalize, refabricate the tech stack, change their data practices, make them data actionable, which we're talking about data actionability today, and ensure that they can handle a growth and scalability protocol, because most companies cannot. If you were to double the number of clients that you had today, would your company be able to handle it? Yes or no?
That's a great question, Rob. And a lot of times they think, I need more leads. When you don't need more leads, you got to have the systems in place to support more leads before you start.
Well, there is that. People need more leads, but what they think is that they need to make more phone calls. They need to send more emails, double everything, and they're going to get a better result. In reality, you don't. your conversion rate's going to be the same. It's in ratio, or it's going to get worse because you're causing brand damage. It's about the target in the end, but that's a whole different thing. And I can actually do something on advanced targeting in the future.
Ooh, we'll have to have you back for that topic. I know that's not what we're talking about today, but we are so going to have you back and talk about that one. For now, though, I know you've got a slideshow ready for us. You've got some stuff you're going to demo for us. You want to dive in? Are you ready?
Oh yeah, go for it. I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. So you saw the title of what was going out is marketing data, tracking best practices and accountability. It does tie into that. I actually changed it without telling Christine, but it's data actionability. What is it? Simplified. This is the ultra most simplest form of what's going on. Now, the phrase of the day is data actionability, obviously. And number one, data actionability, if you've never heard the term, it is absolutely the number one thing lacking from businesses. And when it says large and small on the screen, I'm sure you've already read it, is that I don't care if you're a one-person shop or if you're an enterprise, data actionability is lacking across the board, mid-market, whatever. It's very rare to see a company that's data actionable. And most of the ones that are quite literally data companies because they understand it. It is absolutely essential. And there are ways to do this without making it complex. Very simple practices. And what I'm going to be building into is how your life cycle stages of prospects or prospective buyers and your deal stages correlate. Just that simple correlation and having that secondary layer and understanding when something should become a deal, why it should become a deal, when things shift is crucial. Also, I'm going to define what an MQL is because it's so heavily debated. I actually created the definition that should be acceptable because it shouldn't be under question. An MQL, someone clicks a thing to download a white paper, that does not mean that they intend to buy. That's not an MQL. It just means they're interested in your content.
Well, let's start with defining data actionability, and then we'll roll from there because I know you're going to be throwing a lot of terms at people. They're going to be like, what? What was that?
It's taking the data you have and making it actionable because we all collect data as businesses. Some of us do it better than others. Of course, data tracking and data input protocols are the most important thing. So that way you can have an accurate, centralized point of truth. That has to do with having all your systems integrate and having your sales reps and your marketing folks to actually put the data into the system. So that way it can be compared, contrasted, reported, all that fun stuff. But it's making data actionable so it works for you. Data actionability enables you to look at your past and your present to accurately predict your future state.
Ooh, there it is right there. Write that down.
Right? So again, company size does not matter. Equally important. So if you're doing these practices, I don't care what size you are. I don't care who you're up against, no matter who your competitors are. It gives you a very powerful and a very unique advantage because of how slim it is in the market for people to be doing these practices. You've probably heard the term sales enablement before or marketing enablement. That's kind of the predecessor. And those things are enabled, hence the enablement, by data and data analytics to understand exactly what's going on so you can have full transparency into your company, right? So, Christine, do you have any questions for the time being?
So far, as everybody following us, remember, drop questions in the comments in the chat, and we can always bring those questions on screen so Rob can answer them for you. So if we get lost anywhere, ask those questions.
Yep, I am not afraid of answering. So, starting small is the whole point of this. If you really want to make it somewhere as quickly as possible, which I see so many companies fail to do this. And one of the companies I worked with, which I will not name due to NDA, 20,000 employees, okay? A sales team of 575. Did not have definitions for the life cycle stages, and they did not have a proper deal pipeline, and they did not correlate. You can get even more advanced and then add lead statuses to it, because life cycle stage is the permanent state. Lead status is the temporary state. Because if you already have a client and then you cross-sell them or upsell them or sell them a new product, they're still a client, but then their lead status changes, but their life cycle stage is still a client. So you can start layering this, and it's important to do that, but I'm not going to get into that level of complexity here today.
I was going to say, you might want to just do a quick overview on life cycle stages, what that means for maybe.
We'll be going through that.
Oh, good, because we have
Yeah,
business owners in the audience in addition to marketers, and so we want to make sure that everybody can kind of follow along.
Right. So the following diagram is going to visualize this naturally. And then this is not visible, I realize that, but these are standard life cycle stages. These are standard deal stages. This is not necessarily going to reflect in your company. Every company is going to have different deal stages, but this is the most basic of the most basic form of deal stages that is considered effective for a basic company. So think about it as like a cookie cutter approach. I don't believe in it, but for presentation purposes, it's important. And then, of course, the life cycle stages, this is going to be pretty much the same across the board for most companies, though there are exceptions, such as a life cycle stage being a partner if you have a partnership program, or if they're a client and partner, or if they're a certain type of client where they're buying products versus services, so on and so forth. But yeah, it can get more complex, but really this is going to outline it. So what I'm going to do is share my screen real quick.
All right, so you've got these standard life cycle stages at the top there and standard deal stages underneath it. Now you're going to give us something close up, right?
So this is how they correlate. So everybody can see this, right?
There we go. So standard life cycle stages.
Life cycle stages. You have a suspect. Most people don't know what a suspect is, or they don't even have that within their life cycle stages. A suspect is the cold lead. You suspect that they could be something or some form of cash or revenue or whatever else it may be. People just don't understand what a suspect is, or they don't use that type of terminology. A suspect is a cold lead. You've never met them before. You got them from a lead list. Let's say if you're using ZoomInfo, Apollo, Sales Navigator, you're suspecting it. You've never made contact with them. They have no idea your company exists. That is not a lead, because most people put it into this lead status here. Then you have subscribers. Subscribers, the dotted lines means that it could be any of these outcomes. The solid lines mean that it is going to go that direction from there. Of course, you can lose interest in all of that, but I didn't add that in for the sake of not having complexity. If they subscribe, they subscribe to your content. They sign up to your newsletter. They download the content that you create. They subscribe to your social media, whatever it may be. They are a subscriber. Mm-hmm. That does not have a buying indicator. Right. So the next step here is that
that's gold right there. People need to understand that, right? They think, oh, I need to be famous on social media. I need to, right? And they're assuming, well, they subscribe to this, so therefore they're going to buy something. I would say that
is untrue the majority of the time. Only about 5% of people who subscribe to your content are ever going to be interested in buying, give or take. It's generally less.
All right, so there we go. Facts coming right there from the RevOps Hitman.
Moving forward, we have a lead, and then some people call it a prospect right here. They both mean the same thing, right? Lead and a prospect are the exact same thing. It just depends on what your terminology is. And then you have your marketing qualified leads, which can come from a cold lead. You start marketing to them, then they become an MQL. And we're going to go over what the definition of an MQL is. But then a lead or a prospect can become a marketing qualified lead. It's unlikely, but they're generally going to skip over to a qualified lead. Now, if they're a suspect, you can always have a salesperson reach out to them, like a BDR or an SDR, and they can become a qualified lead if the meeting goes really well, where they don't become a lead, they become a qualified lead because the intro meeting turns into a discovery and you have the right decision maker in the room. Does this all make sense so far?
Woo, okay, well, I mean, you may have to hit that one more time. That was really quick.
So to become a qualified lead, so first I want to go over the difference between qualified lead and sales qualified lead.
Okay.
A qualified lead means that they have the means, they have the need, and they fit your ICP. And you can confirm that through actual human interaction. You have spoken to them in some sort of way, you have made contact, and they have indicated that they need your product, service, or solution, period. Does not mean that you have not gotten budget approval or know what their budget is. You don't know what their timeline is. None of it. It's called this is called the active looking stage. if you're talking about buying stages. But to go back to what I was talking about is that they could be a cold lead. A sales rep reaches out, and then they can either become a lead or a prospect, meaning that, yeah, they have some form of interest, but no qualifiers. You don't know yet. So let's say if a BDR reaches out, they're going to pass it to the AE or the account executive, and then they'll become a qualified lead after that. It skips the marketing side, but it could be that the AE doesn't get to it yet. And then they become a marketing qualified lead because they subscribe to your marketing, so on and so forth. But they can become a qualified lead from there. Are you catching with me now?
I'm catching on to you. Now let's take this and can we put this in a real life example?
Do you want a product-based or a service-based company? Do you want B2B or B2C?
I love the way you think, Rob. Let's do a service-based company, B2B.
So service-based B2B, which industry?
Oh, now, marketing, because we're talking about marketing.
Okay, marketing agencies. I work with them all the time. Great. So let's say you just got a lead list from Apollo or ZoomInfo or Cognism or whatever the hell you use. They're all pretty similar. Now, you have one of your sales reps reach out to them. The sales rep was incredibly effective. So following this line on the left here, this right here, and over, that right there is an indicator. So that right there indicates that it's going to move across down to the qualified lead here. They had a really good conversation, or an SDR reaches out, one of your sales development representatives, and they become a prospect or a lead, but they're not qualified to any level. You spoke to somebody who is not a decision maker. It's just like maybe an influencer, right? And they're saying, oh, I'm going to bring this up to my boss. I want to introduce you. That's what this part is. If they subscribe to your content, great, on their own. But then you also have, if they're a suspect or a cold lead, you start a marketing campaign toward them and they become a marketing qualified lead. We're going to talk about the definition is there. And then if they're a fit, they're going to move on to here. Again, I didn't put any disqualification in here, right, to simplify this. But does that make sense? And then once they're into your marketing, a marketing qualified lead, when we talk about the definition, is going to make more sense. And then they become a qualified lead. Most people skip this. They go straight to sales qualified lead and it becomes pipe. It's just not correct. Most people at this stage are going to go down to, oh, they're in discovery, add it to create a deal. That deal is garbage. Period. Until they become a sales qualified lead, they should not become a deal. So many people misutilize what the life cycle stage of a person is to get into a deal. That's why your pipeline looks so fat, but nothing closes, because it should have never been a deal in the first place. So until you get to the sales qualified lead part, which a sales qualified lead means that they have the means, the timing is right, they have the proper budget, and you have at least one decision maker bought in. Okay.
Well, that's a lot, right? When you think about it, like you said, they're quick to move them saying, oh, they're a qualified lead, but they may not be yet. So you're starting down that.
That's why a qualified lead means they're qualified, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy now. It's passive looking. Sales qualified lead is active looking.
Wow. All right. Make some notes. Are you putting people
into your
deal pipeline too soon?
Now, a sales qualified lead goes to an opportunity, but a deal, most people consider opportunities. But if they're still in discovery, because the discovery process takes time sometimes, if the successful intro call is executed, they're in discovery, and then you also have this level of status, you're going to have the first deal stage in discovery, pretty standard. Then you need to get decision maker buy-in or buyer party buy-in, so multiple decision makers. So when it goes from here to here, it actually passes back to, this is when it actually becomes an opportunity at that point. It's still a sales qualified lead when it enters your pipeline at the appropriate time, but then it becomes an opportunity. From the opportunity, it's then going to pass to goals and expectation setting. The reason why there's the ors down here is this passes over to, it could be a closed loss deal at any given time, and that could be due to disqualification or whatever else, right? But once we have the opportunity in place, most people do not have this in their pipeline, which they should. Goals and expectation setting. What are the goals? What are the expectations? And you build that with them. Now you're going to deliver the proposal, right? as per usual. They'll go through the proposal, you go through contract negotiation, and then awaiting payment. Right after the contract is signed, most people have contract signed as a deal stage. That's not a deal stage because you're not moving forward. It's a static point. That's a status. It is not a deal stage. So contract negotiation is a deal stage. Once it's signed, period, end of story. That's not a deal stage. You're now awaiting payment. Until you're paid, until money hits your bank account, you do not have a closed won deal, period. And a lot of people make this mistake. They say they have a bunch of closed won deals, but they don't because they've never paid. Even if someone signed a contract does not mean that they're going to close, because they could just ghost you after that. They could. That's why there's an or.
They could.
Yeah, they could, and a lot of people do. So that's why there's an or here, and you can go to, even after you're waiting payment, it could be closed law. Say, hey, we changed our mind. We don't want to start till next year, blah, 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 excuse, insert excuse here. Right? Or it's closed won, and then you have a client, and that's when this becomes a client. It goes from an opportunity to a client. Or it goes from an opportunity or a sales qualified lead to a lost opportunity, you're closed lost, or disqualified.
Now, what's your thought process on no means not now, but not permanent no?
It depends on how they say no. Have you established that they have a need? Have you established that they have the means? Have you established whatever you've established? Generally, when they say no and they do need it, it's a timing thing, or the sales rep or whoever was selling to them failed at their job and was not able to communicate the value well enough or connect with them well enough to help them problem solve. People tend to forget what the job of a CEO actually is. They're the last line of defense. Their job is to drive the mission, the vision, the purpose of the company, and the direction, right? Everybody knows that. Though, if there's a problem, let's say at the base level, let's say a marketing coordinator has an issue with something. Then they raise it to their marketing manager. They can't figure it out. Then it goes up from the marketing manager to the marketing director. Let's say you actually have this many layers. I'm just going to give you all the layers, but a lot of companies don't have that. If the director can't figure it out, it goes up to the chief marketing officer or the VP of marketing. And if they can't figure it out, then it goes to the CEO. So it goes all the way up to the C-suite, then passes over to the CEO. Now, the CEO is the end problem solver. If they can't do it in-house, they have to outsource the problem. What they want to talk about is a consultative process on how to solve their problems. And people just try to blind pitch saying, we have this service that's going to grow your company by X, and it's going to do this, it's going to do that. Shut up. No. No. What you need to do is actually talk through it. Make it about them. Your job as a salesperson is not to control the conversation or pitch. Your job is to listen. You cannot listen your way out of a deal, but you can talk your way out of one.
Write that down, folks, right there.
Consultative sales process, listen to their issues, really field them, and understand if you can solve the problem. If you can't, don't try to sell them. That's a mis-sell, and you're going to have a high drop-off rate. You're going to get bad reviews. You're going to make a bad name for yourself. Teach your salespeople that if it's not a fit, and that's why you should build a partner program as well, because if you can't solve the problem, you better damn well know someone who does, and then in exchange, you can ask for a referral. And then since you helped them and gave them the resources they needed, even though it didn't come from you, chances are they know someone who needs what you have.
I always say, if you've got a hammer, everything's a nail, right? So whatever you're trying to sell may not be appropriate in that situation. So like I said, we're about solving problems.
It's this beautiful thing that was forgotten to the ages after the smile and dial era of the late 80s, early 90s called buyer safety.
Wow, you just threw a lot of information at us. I know we've got your
if you can pull the slide deck back up, that'd be great.
Pull that back up.
So there's just a few things here. The data collected at every stage during each life cycle and deal stage, it evergreens. I know reading the slide is bad practice, but I want to double down on that. Evergreening your CRM is important because let's say one of your sales reps got hit by a bus tomorrow, God forbid. Most CRMs look pretty empty. You have no idea what's going on. Every single conversation, every single element, every single product or service they're interested in, every single note, every single recorded conversation. The next salesperson to take over, the only thing that should be missing as far as what they know about the potential customer, the only thing missing should be the actual personal relationship with the customer, period. If this is done properly and you're tracking the right data and you're structuring everything properly, you know everything about the deal, what they want, what they need, how they need it, which product, which service, everything is already there. It's just picking up where they left off. And that's where data actionability comes into play, is that if all that's tracked, you can start getting really, really keen insights into what's working, what's not working. You can actually start measuring what actions are taken by top performers and be able to train and replicate that across the team, because you know exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it, when they're doing it, the frequency, and everything else that comes in with it. So to get your bottom performers to start becoming top performers, you need to replicate what the top performers are doing, but people can't measure that. Welcome to data actionability.
So if you are looking at your sales force and you'd like them to be a little bit more productive, you might need to bring in a RevOps Hitman to come take a look at things for you.
Yeah, or if you're selling on your own, like your marketing team is selling, if you're a marketing agency, since we use that, or if you're doing founder-led sales, the same applies. If you don't have these practices and the foundational elements in place, and you just think, oh, we need salespeople, and you just throw them into the water and say sink or swim, they're gonna sink. Mm-hmm. I've seen it happen a million. We need salespeople. We need salespeople. You know, we need startups I've seen gone belly up simply because they thought, let's hire 5 salespeople and then they'll take care of it, and then the company bankrupts in a year. Dozens and dozens and dozens of times I've seen that happen. It's like clockwork. It doesn't freaking work.
So instead, they should
build the foundational elements, because think about building a house. You can build a house on dirt. You can. And it will be there for a while, but it will start to sink, rot, you'll get bugs, and then it'll eventually collapse after a couple of years. You pour a concrete slab, you build the foundation, you structure it properly, you architect it, it's going to stand for 100, 200 years. Do you want a house that dilapidates in 6 years, or do you want a house that's going to stand for 200 years? That's the simplest way to put it. So using the proper data input and tracking protocols, that is the key. That's the key to success. And then it's actually understanding how your buyer life cycles and deal flows correlate, because just like I showed you in that diagram, because it's really difficult. That's like the core center, the chewy center of the Tootsie Pop, right? Understanding your sales process architecture, understanding your marketing process, your marketing operations process architecture is the key. And then being able to combine the two and then have these things correlate so they can actually properly collaborate. Because depending on what their life cycle is, you don't want to send meaningless marketing to someone to try to bring them in as a new lead who's already been speaking to an account executive for the past 2 weeks, and then they receive something saying, hey, are you interested in these services? It literally throws the deal out. They feel offended. Mm-hmm. Because sales and marketing are not working together, and deal flows tied to life cycle stages and lead statuses will literally prevent this from ever happening, because it could put them into a like an opt-out list for certain scenarios or marketing content, sales content, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Absolutely. I know in the flows, a lot of my clients use go high level. And so there's always a spot that if then, right? So if they've already been tagged with this, then don't send them that. Right?
Yep, that's called a workflow automation. And yes, that is your creme de la creme right there. Now, no matter which CRM you use or any other adjacent technology that you're using with it, it is crucial, absolutely crucial, to have a well-established, layered, and correlated relationships between your buyer lifecycle and deal stages as a baseline minimum, an absolute minimum. This should be structured and defined.
Okay, so what's that mean? What?
It means that it is the very beginning of data actionability. Everything that we just talked about, as far as that diagram and how it's structured, that is the baseline minimum, entry level, simple form of data actionability. That is the very beginning. It's the genesis.
So there's probably a lot of people looking at the structure you had up and going, that is not what my pipeline looks like. That is not what my deal structure looks like, right? They might want to go
Well,
back.
it doesn't have to. Every deal structure is different. You can have 5 stages. You can have the largest one I've ever built. It's a 14-stage pipeline, but a very complex deal because they sold government, right? SAM.gov contracts where they send out RFPs and everything. That's a very long sales cycle. It depends on the complexity of your sale. If you have something more transactional, or if you have like a partner program, and yes, you should have a deal pipeline for partnerships. Yes, it does not generate revenue in the sense where the deals are worth something, but that's usually only about 4 stages. Partnership discovery, and then it's expectation setting between the partners and the relationship building. Then you have the proposal of how you should actually partner with the contract, and then you have either close won or close lost. That's it. Simple, simple, simple. But it depends on what you're selling, how you're selling it. But things that are highly transactional, shorter sales cycles, shorter pipelines, less stages. Things that are more complex, service-based businesses, complex products, B2B products, that's going to be a much longer sales cycle. In B2C, it's usually about 4. So, but beyond that, it's like the impact here, and this is based off statistics that I've actually pulled from my own clients. This is not something that you can find online. Okay. Is that the impact of doing something like this is that you have between a 1.5 to 3x increase in close ratio, a 2.5 to 4x increase in follow-up success rate. You have a 1.5 to 2x increase in future pipeline. And I'm being conservative with this because I do have some outliers where future pipeline actually is increased 16.4x with one of my clients. It's crazy. And then 2 to 3 times stronger relationships with the prospects that you're working with. So it's well worth it. Now, always remember, and I'm going to read this with you. Implementing a unified tech stack, RevOps process, and a sales pipeline architecture while you leverage well-defined data actionability practices will, and absolutely will, enable and support, and this is an important word, sustainable growth and scalability for your organization, no matter the size or the current state.
All right, so let's digest that for a second. So a unified tech stack. So when you talk about unified tech stack, you mean?
Everything connects, integrations. And we're not just talking Zapier. If you can avoid Zapier at all costs, do it, because Zapier is a Band-Aid. If it's necessary, do it. But you want to have direct API integrations. One of the best CRMs out there that has some of the most connections that you can get is HubSpot. If you're using something more like, what did you mention before?
Go high level.
Yeah, Go High Level. It's mostly Zapier connections. They have very few direct API connections. But again, it's a marketing company that created that application and they outsourced all the development, so you're not going to have the same level. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, before we're done here, hold on. Let me share my screen one more time. And before we go to the Q&A, let me share my screen one more time.
Okay.
So, boom, boom, and boom. I have definitions of every single type of buyer lifecycle stage, when it becomes part of pipeline, and then, of course, the deal stages, what happens after the deal, so on and so forth, all defined. But the one that is that has the most conjecture is, and Christina, please tell me when you can read this. Is this large enough?
Yeah, almost.
Oh, you want to go a little bit bigger? How's that?
Yeah, there you go.
A marketing qualified lead, or an MQL, is a prospect that has exhibited behavior and or activity that exhibits legitimate interest, key word or key phrase, to try and or buy your product or services. The definition of an MQL is heavily debated, but down to brass tacks, the only reason to consider a lead pre-qualified to any respect, they must have taken an effort to make an inbound request, set up a demo via your website, click through an ad, go all the way through the funnel, or same thing, but through organic marketing content or social media. They must have engaged with your business/product in a way that is likely to generate future revenue. The mistake is to consider a person who is quote unquote interested in your content an MQL. That does not make them an MQL. It makes them a subscriber. That is way further back in the lifecycle stages, if you remember. when in reality, they must have shown measurable buying signals that lead to intent to purchase, which intent cannot be predicted. I had some of the best mathematicians who worked for me in the world when I had my last company try to figure that out. Intent does not exist unless the intended action, which if your intended action is for them to purchase the product, unless they purchase the product, the intent never existed in the first place. Okay? Very weird to think about. It's almost like quantum physics. It is, it isn't, and it's both, and it's neither at the same time. So always remember, interest, this is one of my quotes, interest is not intent. So stop pretending like it is. And that ties into intent data, things like Bombora, all of that. It's garbage. It is not intent data. It was a very smart marketer who came up with that term because intent cannot be measured. It's also based on domain. So the domain of the company or the user in which they are engaging. Let's say if they work for Amazon and Amazon's interested in your company magically. Oh my God, it's amazing. We've had 457 visits looking at this page. It's probably just Amazon salespeople researching your company to try to sell to you. More times than not, it's salespeople trying to sell to you. It is behavioral data. That is the actual terminology. What they call intent data is actually behavioral data. Do not fall victim to this trick. It is not intent data. Intent data does not exist. Okay?
Right. So you're looking at this behavior and then they're assuming there's an intent behind it, which may or may not be accurate.
And you know what they say about assuming?
Right.
It is not what they say it is. It is not true.
And I think this is a really important concept that you bring up, Rob, because I think a lot of people that are in the sales role, whether it's a founder acting as a sales, whether it's the sales team, right, where you cross that threshold from interest to actually becoming like a real lead, a real prospect, right? Just interest doesn't necessarily mean that they want to buy. They just could be curious. They could be, right?
So they're curious for researching your company to sell to you. Absolutely. Or they just like your content and they like reading it, or they're learning from it and they have no interest in working with you. They just like your content.
I always tell my clients that your ideal client can afford you. If they can't, then they're not your ideal client. Move on.
Yeah, or you've outpriced yourself. I do monetization methodologies and optimization as well. And oftentimes startups underprice themselves. About 90% of them do. And then the other 10% overprice themselves. But there is actually, well, it's 9% because 1% actually do it right. But all things aside, that's the thing is that are you outpricing yourself from the market? And if you are, you better damn well have a value proposition that is something that makes them foam at the mouth. Okay. You can pull it off, but there are ways to do it. And there's circumstances. If you are a commodity, it is unlikely that you can outprice yourself unless you are literally globally ranked and known as one of the best in the world. Or another there are a few other circumstances, but I don't want to keep going and going and going and then have people just kind of, eyes glaze over and all of that. There's a lot of different circumstances.
I don't know. Your long list there is enough to make our eyes glaze over. Are there any other ones that you think we need to know or?
Well, no, that's the one I wanted to go over because I didn't want to take up everybody's time. But if anybody wants to go over these with me, they can.
Well, I heard a rumor that you were going to be available for people that wanted to talk to you.
Yes, you got to scan it, or you can contact me on LinkedIn, or that's my cell number, and I might regret putting it up there. And then also, all my information's right there. Feel free. And if you want to schedule a 15-minute call as a masterclass follow-up, feel free to do so. It's through that QR code or the link that is being shared by Christine.
That's right. I'm about to book an appointment with Rob
It's free. It's 15 minutes. It's just a discussion about this. If you want to talk about other things, we can do so as well. But it's a 15-minute consult. Feel free. And if you want to talk through this presentation, if you have questions, if you want to go through some of the stages and talk about that, that's fine. And then if you want to have another meeting, we can have another meeting. If you just need help, if you need advice, all good. If you want to work with me, fantastic. If not, that's totally fine too. We could be friends. All good.
Yeah, take the information and run, right? So, but if you're looking to make some changes in your business and you're thinking, ooh, now I've got a whole different way of looking at what's going on in my business. And I'm starting to see why I'm having some of the problems I'm having. And if you're looking for somebody to give you a hand with that, you definitely want to reach out to Rob. He is obviously really knowing his stuff. So you can always ask him to slow down if you need help. But I think you did a great job today of kind of keeping it at a level that we could keep up with, Rob.
Yeah, I tried keeping it as simple as possible because the other two were very popular that I've done with you guys, but this one I tried really getting to the simplification method.
Absolutely. I love it. So last chance, if you haven't scanned that yet, go ahead and scan that, book that appointment, or grab the link in chat and get together with Rob. Connect with him on LinkedIn also. He's a great connector and he knows a lot of awesome people. So
I can't promise response times on LinkedIn are going to be that quick. So
that's true.
Just know that because a lot of people reach out to me constantly.
Yeah. So you're going to just got to be patient.
Be patient. I will get to you eventually.
It might be a little while later, but that's okay.
Yeah, and if I don't get to you quickly enough, just ping me again so that you're at the top of the inbox. That's
there you go. Just get back up to
you're
the top.
You're not going to annoy me.
We all need reminders sometimes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pull
thank
that
you,
off.
Donald, by the way, for saying that. What a great topic. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat because we have a couple more minutes here. So, Christine, do you have any questions that you want to field or?
Well, we went through a really nice overview of kind of what that process looks like. And I think a lot of times we have a CRM. We're like, great, I'm going to use it. And we don't understand it and use it to its full potential.
I can give you a statistic is that 78% of the features offered in HubSpot. I only know the stats for HubSpot, by the way.
Okay.
78% of the features offered in HubSpot are not utilized by the customers. 78%.
That's a lot, right? When you think about how it's set up, right? Are you using it to put in all the data that you need?
It means they're only using 22% of the power of the application. That's it.
Yeah. Which tells you that imagine if you actually put the rest of it in place, what that could do for your business, right? If you're not following up when you have a conversation, are you putting that data in your CRM, right?
Yes. And also creating reminders and all that stuff. Let's say there are a lot of variables when it comes to selling, a lot of variables. Anything could go wrong. They might just not like you. Or you can have a blocker that comes in, or it could be a budgetary issue. Let's say the stars align and it's perfect. 74% of closable deals where everything aligns, let's take everything else out of the equation. 74% are lost due to the failure of following up or the failure to follow up at a frequency which is considered acceptable, which is following up often enough, or if you annoy them following up too often. But 74% of closable deals where the stars have aligned and everything's perfect are lost due to follow-up issues.
Absolutely. I'm going to back that up. Also, we just did an email campaign for one of my clients, and the first one email went out, and that was fine. He didn't get the open rate that he was hoping for, but when we sent the second one up by changing the subject line,
that's just the subject line. That's all it is.
Exactly. So the second one we did was a different subject line, and 40% opens out of that. So it's interesting. So don't give up the first time, right?
Yeah. And I work with clients to help with that too. It's like one of my clients, Brian, I got his open rate to about 86% and then his reply rate to 22.4%. And then out of that reply rate, about 70% were positive.
See, that's pretty good there.
That's the magic of psycholinguistics, which is a whole different spectrum of what I deal with.
Right. But the idea of
targeting, segmentation, psycholinguistics.
See, now there's that sounds like 3 more shows. Just saying, Rob.
I could. If you I'm happy to hop on anytime you want. So.
And we love having you because you always bring a wealth of knowledge to the table and make us start thinking about things. And maybe we need to put different systems in place, right? So it's a great challenge. So I love
the traditional methods don't work anymore. The spray and pray marketing and selling. The mass volume, all you're doing is creating brand damage. Nobody buys that way anymore. And then for the love of God and all that is holy, stop hard pitching. And then LinkedIn is one of the most misutilized and underutilized sales tools out there where people treat it as if it's a sales tool. It is not a sales tool. It's a networking tool. Stop pitching in your connection requests. Stop pitching. If you're not doing that, stop pitching in your first message. Nobody wants to be sold to. Nobody wants that.
Great advice right there.
They
Absolutely.
want to network. The goal of LinkedIn is to set up a meeting, and you better damn well set it up with the right people by targeting properly. It's all about how you target and who you connect with, because you can reasonably predict who's a fit before you speak with them, network with them, let them pitch you, and then you can have it become a mutual exchange. Even if they don't buy, they could probably send you referrals, become a partner, whatever else. Your goal, again, whether it's email or whether it's LinkedIn, is to set a meeting, not to make a sale. You're putting the cart in front of the horse. Selling is like dating. Are you going to walk up to a guy or a gal at a bar and just say, hey, you want to come back to my apartment and screw, as the first sentence that you speak to them? That's what you're doing. The equivalent.
Okay. I was going to use marriage as a, on proposal.
Well,
in the
marriage,
first
so
date,
it works
but
like this. Selling is like dating. And then you have the proposal of, would you like to be boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever your flavor is. Who cares?
There's a whole journey in the
Then you
relationship,
have,
is
of
what
course,
you're
the
saying.
contracting period. That contracting period is saying, let's get engaged. And then you have the engagement together, the project, the engagement. We often call it engagements. And if they renew or they become a lifetime customer, that's the marriage.
I love that. See the way that works, right? Because the idea is, a long-term relationship. That's the goal. And I love the way you explain with the approach on LinkedIn. And the number one thing that I help clients with, it seems like every time I turn around, I used AI for this. I'm like, and tell it to stop pitching and tell it to focus on building relationships.
Because almost all the content out there, because it's the relevance engine, which people don't understand, like ChatGPT, is that it's going to pull all the most relevant content and it's going to build something, and it's going to build a pitch, because everything on the internet, almost everything says pitch, when it's dead. But it's technically the most relevant because the most articles and the most content has been written about pitching.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you want to make a change, stop thinking about
using AI to write messaging, for the love of God, for sales. Just don't. Just don't. Use it as an ideation engine.
And then play with it from
AI
there.
to write sales messaging. It does not work.
No, you need
And
to.
I used to own an AI company. I'm pro AI. I literally built one from the ground up and ran it for half a decade. It is not meant for that. No.
Tell it to build relationships. That changes it, and it changes the focus. It's a game changer. So if you're finding things are really pitchy, tell it to build relationship, not sales.
Yes, and then use that take it with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Use it as an ideation engine, is what I'm saying, is that it gives you an idea of what to write, and then you do it yourself. Don't just copy and paste. Don't just change a word here and there. Really put your mind into it, because it's going to do a lot of the preliminary thinking for you to give you that idea, and then you can make it your own, but make it your own.
Absolutely. That's the authenticity comes in.
Yes, because you come off as disingenuous, and also they make things out there. There are programs that you can use where you can actually take text and then you can dump it in, and it'll say the percentage of which it assumes was written by an AI or a bot. ChatGPT, if you're using that, it has an average of about a 72 to an 84% written by an AI rate when it spits out of those engines. Claude only lands somewhere between 12 to 44%.
And then there's another program, I think it's like Humanize It or something. I've got a friend that created that, and it's like changes it up so it's not as body, but I don't know. I'll have to test it and see if
run it through the engine to see how much it believes is written. Although people can tell intuitively, it feels unnatural to the reader. Read it to yourself out loud, and then put yourself in their shoes. If I received this message, reading it to yourself out loud, how would I feel about it?
Absolutely.
People tend not to do that ever.
Wow. So we have had all sorts of fun, the sales, the data, how it all ties together. And Rob, as always, you are amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Love having you in our Giver Marketing Network, and love having you on the Giver Marketing Tuesday broadcast. So
the pleasure is mine. Thank you.
we're going to get you back on the show again. So feel free to leave in the comments if there's something particular you think Rob should talk about on the future show, and we'll see if we can drag him back.
I will
on
take
stage.
suggestions. I could talk to everything from left to right, up and down throughout a company because I work across every division.
You touch it all when you're putting it together for your RevOps. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but I'm not a finance guy. I don't do finance.
Once more, scan that, get an appointment with them, have some fun, have a great conversation with them. Obviously, he enjoys teaching, so you're in the right place. Sometimes I'm going to say he pops into our networking group, which is networking for marketers. If you're PR, if you're in the media space, this is open to you also. So networking for marketers, we meet on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern. So register at givermarketing.com/networking. Sometimes you even see Robin there. So we're going to have a lot of fun. And we've got people saying that was a great topic. I agree. Great topic. And we will see you again next week for another episode of the Tuesday Marketing Broadcast. Looking forward to it. See y'all soon.
Yep. See y'all later. Thank you, Christine.
Absolutely.